Yeah, I'm super excited for him. I mean, this is it's like the breakthrough moment. He's had a couple of runner-up finishes, and so it's good to see him be able to break through and have another great season. I think his third in a row, and excuse me, I think the best one because he kind of withstood from being injured. I think the last two were hampered by his injuries, and so kind of out of his control. But his play was certainly great. But I'm super excited for him. He's a good guy, and yeah, I knew him when he was a boy becoming a young man, or a young man becoming a man, and now he's a grown man. He's got a family, so I'm just. As much as I'm excited to see him win the MVP, I'm also equally excited to see him as a father and as a husband. Yeah, Joe, I think as a person, he is so the person that you see on the court is different than the person I think he is off the court. While I think he's fun loving and all of that, I think he's a lot more introverted and quiet. And at least when he was here, that's who he was. I don't know if the NBA has changed that in terms of his persona, but I really think that when he first got here, he was raw, but you could see just tremendous hand-eye coordination and athleticism for a 7-footer. He may have been like 6'11" at the time, but he was able to do windmills and between the leg dunks and things of that nature. I always tell the story that I was on the phone with a college coach. And I walk out of my office and he's sitting there and he's like, I see him bank in a 3-pointer. Then he banks in another one and it banks in another one. And I'm like, he's doing this on purpose. And he hit like eight in a row. It was just absolutely amazing. So he's always had that hand-eye coordination that's allowed him to be successful. But early on, there were growing pains in terms of understanding. Although he's very intelligent, I don't think he gets the level of recognition for how intelligent he is. And even as he was starting off in only his second year of organized basketball, when he came to us after leaving Montverde, he demonstrated a knowledge that was beyond his years of play. So, yeah, I think I mean, everyone knew he'd be successful. I mean, and back then, 2013, big men were, utilized as big men, put them on the post, and then a lot less 3-pointers. So now here you have a guy who's able to shoot threes also, coupled with his intelligence. We all thought that he was going to be special, but nobody thought he would be this special. We had a great mentor in Luke Rashad and Bamute, who really walked him through the process and guided him through his early years. So Luke was great. He had experienced it himself and had success. And Luke was great to work with on my part too. I think the biggest thing that I tried to get Joel to understand is that there's a process to it, like I do with any of my other players. There's a process to it, so don't be rushed by it and make sure that you make the right decision. I thought choosing Kansas was a great decision for him because of how they play inside out. And so, that was a great decision, although he could have gone to Texas or Florida or any number of schools and had success. I mean, because he was that talented and he was that good. But, Kansas was a great fit for him, and Coach Self and the way that they play was a great opportunity for him to do that. But our biggest thing was just helping him get better, because he could have gone to Kansas, and if he wasn't better than when he stepped foot on our campus, then he wouldn't have been prepared or more prepared to play as a freshman. So we really focused on understanding what is okay and what is not acceptable. I mean, the biggest thing that he actually had trouble with when we were starting or when he was playing with us was staying out of foul trouble. He would often get some sort of screening foul early on. He'd probably get an over the back foul, which I'm okay with, because that's, I mean, you're actively rebounding outside of your area. But he'd pick up early fouls and we'd sit him on the bench like, Joe, come on, you got to stop making those mistakes. But our main goal was to just try to make that transition from high school to college as seamless as possible. And obviously his athleticism, his talent, and his willingness to work hard helped to make that as a smooth a transition for himself as he could. Yeah, some of the things that I mentioned before, right? So his athleticism. So he's seven. I don't know, how tall is he now? 7'1", 7'2". Who knows how tall he actually is? And he's put on girth and weight and strength. So those are some good qualities to have. But his hand-eye coordination is just ridiculous. I mean, his dad was a professional handball player, so he could throw a ball like he could have been a Major League Baseball player. His foot-eye coordination was ridiculous because he grew up playing soccer, just like most of the Africans, right, or international students. So he could have been a professional soccer player, although that'd have been weird at 7'2", but he could have. I mean, he's just that naturally gifted. And then I mentioned his brain. Like he absorbs things, and he is smart, and he picks up on what the little nuances are. So his coaches are able to probably deliver things to him that they wouldn't be able to deliver to most of the other guys at his position. So he's just been able to hit a curve and go faster. And, don't underestimate taking 2 years off to just sit, watch a lot of film and in the Sixers organization. Yeah, I mean, it's surprising, but it's not. I don't know if that makes sense, but no one thought. I just texted with my assistant coaches from when he was here. Like, who would have thought? Right? Who would have thought we would have been coaching the future NBA MVP? But at the same time, you look back and you're like, I can see it now. I can see why he's had all the success that he's had. So I'm super happy for him. Yeah, I don't know if I taught him any of that, we were playing in an event in the Krell Classic over Christmas break. We were playing a team who ran 2-2-1 full court press. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put Joel in the middle. And my coaches were kind of like, really? Because usually you put your center down by the basket, right? And so I was like, no, I'm going to put him in the center because then he can make the pass, but he can also, it's easy to get the ball to him if our guys need it. I think he had a triple-double that game, right? Maybe the first in our school's history. And not only did he do that, but he just did some moves when he was in a 3-on-2 situation that you just don't expect a kid that young to the game of basketball at that size to be able to do. And I just remember looking at my coaches like, are we really watching this? And then you see that stuff manifest itself now, especially with his ball fakes, his ability to accept a double team and to be able to pass over top of it because he's just real comfortable, catching the ball on the perimeter. And like, he never seems like he's in a rush, right? And that's kind of how he was when we were here. And fortunately, I've been able to coach a lot of good players, but the poise that he just possesses at such a young age and what he did then and now what he's doing now, I mean, it's just, there is some transferable qualities. And certainly the 3-point shooting example that I gave you, it was practice, but he was really the first center that I ever let shoot threes. And I think he shot over 30%. And who does that? Your second year playing organized basketball to be able to shoot that well. So it's surprising, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, I think there's no question he's a top 10 player right now. Some would question if he's a top 5 player, but if he continues to play as he's been playing, I mean, then you start to get mentioned along the likes of Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, just David Robinson, guys who won an MVP, who were centers, who also, led their teams to championships. So, I hope he's able to accomplish that because everyone gets, it's not every great player gets judged by their team's accomplishments, right? And if they win a championship or not, and that somehow knocks them down. And, I think that he's going to be considered one of the greatest. And, when you consider his footwork, his touch, his ability to shoot the mid-range and the three-pointer, I mean, really, you've only ever seen one guy in Hakeem Olajuwon like him, right? So maybe David Robinson in terms of his mid-range, but gosh, I mean, in terms of how he fluidly moves on the court, his idol Hakeem Olajuwon, I'm sure it's a great feeling to know that you're being compared to your idol. So that's pretty awesome for him. I don't know what it's like. I mean, I can only assume, but it's so hard. It's so hard to come from Africa and have success playing American basketball. I mean, I've had a number of guys who have done that. There's thousands of kids who have come over and gone through the prep circuit, gone through AAU, even into college, and just don't find a level of success. It's just such a hard transition because they don't grow up playing it. They grow up playing soccer. And then it's only when they realize that they're, 6'5", 6'7" in the 8th grade when they start to play, basketball. And that's the same with Joel. I mean, he was a volleyball player, right? I mean, and by the way, when he played volleyball, it was amazing to watch him spike the ball. I mean, he would obliterate the ball. So, but he didn't come upon it until late. And then you get some kids who are just as late, and then they're just not as good. I mean, so to know that he studied Hakeem Olajuwon even before he probably realized how great Hakeem Olajuwon is, to now kind of almost full circle be able to be mentioned along with Hakeem Olajuwon has got to bring him great joy. It brings me joy just knowing that was this path that he took. But to know that he is, I would just imagine that he's in the same sentence as Hakeem now has got to bring him great joy. I know when you think about who's in the top 10, I mean, a good host of them are international players, from Jokic to Giannis and to Luka and whatnot. And then you got a guy who is undoubtedly going to be the number one pick in Wembanyama, and I can imagine he's going to be great too. I think it just is a testament to, number one, the Dream Team and their influence on what they did for international basketball playing in Barcelona. I think number two is that there's great coaching all throughout the world. The United States is not necessarily the epicenter or the only option for great basketball to be played. I mean, and think about how many concepts the NBA uses that are from international basketball. I mean, I got a number of guys who are playing professionally overseas, and they're like, "Coach, these guys can ball, right?" So I think it's just I think it's awesome to see that these guys are going to be MVPs. Luka could be the next MVP, and then you have four in a row, right, that are international guys. And so, but I think it's really neat to see that our game has become such a global sport, because when Joel was here, we had 13 guys on our team, and 7 of them were international players. 5 of them from the continent of Africa. And so we've always cherished what international players can bring to our program. But now what you can see on more of a macro level, what they're bringing to the game is just really fruitful and awesome to see. Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's awesome for him to be able to experience, the ups and the downs, the ups, the highs and the lows, I should say. But the lows early, and now the highs, right? And if it hadn't been for a unbelievable Kawhi Leonard fadeaway baseline shot that bounced on the rim 5 times before it went in, he may have already had a championship, right? Or he playing for one. But such as the NBA, like, you're just the list of guys who have won championships is a lot smaller than the guys who haven't. And so I'm just hopeful that he can continue in this process, no pun intended, to become all that he's capable of being. And if James Harden continues to play like he did last night, I mean, they got a really good chance. But he's got to be healthy, Joel, and his whole entire team. And injuries play a big part of all of this. Imagine if he hadn't been injured prior to the NBA draft. Like, he probably gets selected by Cleveland, and then what? Cleveland, do they trade? With LeBron coming in town, do they trade him? Do they trade Joel Embiid, knowing that a formidable center is key to the success in winning championships? I don't know. So, like, injuries play such an interesting role. So hopefully he can stay away from that and be able to find the success in winning a championship, because that's very important to him. And it's the reality is that he hasn't won a championship since he helped us win our first one in 2013. Our first state championship. So he's overdue. Hopefully he'll get it this year.